Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Airspeed Plays TCG video. This one's going to be for Force of Will, the new, I suppose newly released in English trading card game. That's been out about a year, maybe 2 years at most in Japan, so just a few weeks ago it came out in English, and on my channel I have a video where I basically opened up all this stuff, the two of the starter decks and then this one pack. But yeah, Force of Will, best way to describe it is a kind of easier to play with a few additional features version of Magic the Gathering. There's a lot of similarities to that game, mixed in with a few little things from Yu-Gi-Oh! And other card games. It manages to be fairly unique and not just a kind of Magic the Gathering rip-off. It's actually pretty interesting overall, but yeah. Very interesting game, and here's some of the main stuff that's available. Right now, really the only products available are 5 different starter decks, one for light, one for fire, one for water, one for wind, and one for darkness. They're the 5 different colors or attributes of the game, like the 5 different colors of mana in Magic the Gathering. The difference in this game is that instead of using kind of lands to generate mana, you use magic stones for each of these elements to generate will points, and then you use those to summon cards. I'll talk about more later in the kind of mechanics, how you play the game section and stuff, like, you know, going through the different types of cards. But yeah, here's the products available: trial decks, starter decks, booster packs and booster boxes. That's all that's available so far. There's no tins, promos or anything like that. But as I said, the game is just out now in English. So The Dawn of Valhalla is the name of the first set, and yeah, that's pretty much all that's out right now. And there's a few starter deck exclusive cards, but primarily most of the cards come from the Dawn of Valhalla starter set, starter booster set at least. So the packs themselves have 10 cards in them. 8. I think it's 3 uncommons, 5 commons, 1 magic stone, and 1 rare card. So I actually have the pack that I got here. So what you get is obviously 1 rare or above. I think the only rarities that are available are just rare or super rare. This is just normal rare, so the other ones are probably crazy. Let's see, you get, yeah, that's a uncommon, 1, so 2 uncommons, and then I think it's 6 commons, so 1, 2, 3, yeah, 6 commons, and then you get 1 magic stone, which is the exact same as the ones that you get in, like, this is a light magic stone. It's the exact same as I think the ones you get here, except with a different artwork. So that's what they're going to do with that. I haven't fully looked at like the set list of Dawn of Valhalla, so I don't know if there's any like special magic stones, because the way you use the will points / mana in this game is a bit different than Magic the Gathering. But as I said, 10 cards per pack in Dawn of Valhalla. That's pretty good, standard for a lot of games. And then what I really like about the decks in Force of Will is that they're very different than the decks in terms of packaging decks in other games. So most other games have a starter deck around this size. Vanguard, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Future Card Buddy Fight all have decks that are around this size, and Magic the Gathering is even kind of bigger. So the fact that this is basically just the size of a deck is really cool, actually. I really like that. Just to compare it here, you can see it just is enough to fit the deck in there, plus some of the other stuff. So what you get in a trial deck, starter deck, whatever you want to call it, is obviously the deck itself, which is interesting. What you get in each deck is the one thing that makes this game different than Magic the Gathering is that you actually have a ruler card that's basically the ruler of your deck, and it's a double-sided card that doesn't have the standard backing. You start with it on this side, the non-shiny side, and then there's a special thing you can do during the game called J-Activate to turn it into a Judgment Ruler, which is the shiny side of the card, which is the basically use your ruler as a monster on the field, and it's a really interesting mechanic. So you get a kind of rare ruler card, you get a rare kind of Resonator, which are just monsters in this game, which is this cover card here, Michael the Archangel here, for the light trial deck. You get two rares of another Resonator, and they're all the shinies you get in the deck, so 4 shinies per deck. And then you just get multiples of all the other cards, which I'll go through later, but consist of like Resonators, spells, and stuff like that. And also, you get 10 light magic stones, so 10 of those. That's interesting. And I'll show you why you get, I suppose, so little of them compared to, say, a Magic the Gathering type thing. But yeah, and then just to show you this as well. So here's the light magic stone from the pack that I got, and here's the one from the deck. They're different, but they do the exact same thing. So there's going to be different artworks for them. That's nice. But yeah, in addition to that, you get one of these kind of mats here. This is one of them here. And you know, you've got your Magic Stone deck, which is different. Life Break area. This is your Magic Stones area. That's where you put your ruler card, standby area, brief turn thing. The field is just this area here. Main deck, graveyard, and that's all the areas of the field. Folds up pretty nicely, fits in the thing. And then the other 2 pieces of paper you get in this game are a little kind of reference booklet that just goes through some of the keywords from the game, like what's life break, what does the ability enter mean, a continuous, activate, flying, attack, defense, all of that sort of stuff. And probably most importantly of all, timing diagram. It just has a list of all the different phases of each turn and tells you when each type of action can be done. So there's a circle if you can do it, an X if you can't, and it breaks down very nicely, like, okay, these are the things I can do during my opponent's turn, these are the things I can't do during my opponent's turn. This is a really helpful book. I wish more games would do something like this, just to make it a lot more clear as to what you can do at what certain times. So that's a nice little book. And then you get the full color kind of how to play kind of diagram thing, which, you know, it's just, it goes through in nice detail enough, I suppose, what you can do. It's not perfect because you can tell it's translated from Japanese, and some of the English is a bit confusing to understand. Like some of the stuff like Judgment Life Break here, it explains what it is, but it doesn't explain when you can do it. And there's a few little things like that throughout the game, like it doesn't give you the full details on what you can do. The other side just explains the different types of cards and the different areas of the field. But yeah, that's what you get in each trial deck. It's a very nice kind of little kind of kit that comes with the starter deck. I love that it's really small. I suppose it saves on shipping depending on where you order them from. One thing about this game is that I think it only really has distributors in Europe right now. I think America doesn't quite have distributors, but you can order from UK websites. I got mine from cardteam.co.uk. They have the decks in stock and the boosters and the booster boxes, so you can order from there, and I think some other places, some other UK card sites have it as well. The other trial deck I have here is just the Fire one, which is in terms of what each trial deck does, this one's focused on gaining life back, basically increasing your life points, while this one focuses more on burning your opponent for life points and attacking quickly. So each of the decks have their own unique things that they can do and their own kind of unique keywords, that sort of thing. But yeah, that's the main gist of what this game is about. Next section, I'm just going to go through the different types of cards so you know what each card, roughly what each card does before I go into the how to play section of the game. And then after that, I'll go into basically rarities and stuff like that, collectability, and talk a little about how competitive I think the game is, though there's not a whole lot to say because this game is still very new kind of right now, at least in English release. So see you just after this break for the different card types. Okay, so here are the different card types. We'll start off with the rulers, since they're kind of one of the more unique aspects of this game. On the right here you can see what one side of the card is, the non-shiny part of at least the starter deck rulers. This is the way you'll start the game with your ruler, with this side up, where it doesn't have an attack or defense, as you can see, but it does have a bunch of effects, including a J activate effect, where you pay some will, including, you know, the different types, whether that just be any sort of will or specific types. And when you do that J activate, you flip the card over to the other side. So for instance, for this guy, you'd flip him over and he'd become this card, and he'd be a monster on the field then, because the ruler on its own doesn't have attack or defense to be a monster. And obviously they otherwise they act as like normal cards, where they have a continuous effect, activate effect, and they can do stuff. But on the other side, they have attack and defense. They're now called a J ruler as opposed to a normal ruler. And they have abilities themselves, which usually are really powerful and really switch the game up when you manage to play them. But as you can see, the kind of layout of each card here, big piece of art over most of the card, effect box, and then name, kind of card type, card attribute, attack, defense, and then on the bottom you get the number. In this case, all the shinies are considered like starter 1, 2, 3, or starter, 4, 5, 6, and so on. But they're the rulers. Next we go into the resonators, which make up most of the game. Like this guy, Michael, the Archangel. And as you can see here, he has listed there, Resonator Angel. Resonator is just this game's name for monsters, basically. And up the top is a really important thing, the will cost. The little kind of wheel up in the top, in the shape of a pentagon, is the amount of colored mana that you need, not mana, will that you need. So in this case, 2 of them are kind of lit up in yellow, which means you need to use 2 light wills plus the little circle at the side. The 4 means plus 4, so to pay for him you need 6 overall, consisting of 2 light and 4 of any color, which obviously those are this card here, Light Magic Stone. So you play this onto your field in the Light Magic Stone area, and when you tap it, or in this case rest it, you basically get 1. So it acts the exact same way as a land card, but for will, obviously, and that's how you pay for cards in this game. And you've got abilities like flying, works pretty much identically to the way it works in Magic the Gathering, where they can't be attacked by cards that don't have flying and stuff like that. Enter means it has an ability when you first play it onto the field. Activate is an ability where you activate it during the course of the game. You decide when you want to do that. And obviously these resonators have various different effects and kind of titles. So this one is an angel. This one's a Knight of the Round Table. This one only costs 2. Has different effects. The break effect is something that comes into play with the thing called life break area of the game, which I'll explain more when I get into the actual how to play game. But more or less, if you draw this card into your hand and just play it onto the field, that break doesn't really do anything for you. It's a different part of the game. Here's one of the other shinies. This costs 4. And then the only other thing I want to talk about with resonators is just this thing down in the bottom right corner. You can see there's the light symbol there on all of these cards, since they're from the light deck. And the same case here, but as you can see when you go to the other colors, there's the darkness symbol. It doesn't really show up that well, but you can sort of see it up here in the corner. It's shaped like a moon. That's for darkness. Here is the wind symbol. There is the fire symbol, and there is the water symbol. So they're all the various different symbols, and I think there's some kind of blank symbols as well for just cards that don't really matter what you do. And I think the idea is that you can play this game with like 2 or 3 different kind of attributes in your deck, light, fire, or so on, stuff like that. But I like that unlike Magic the Gathering, these decks just have light or fire monsters in them. They don't mix them up at all. But they're the obviously ruler, which you only have 1 of, and they're not even part of your deck. They just go straight onto the field, kind of like your starting Vanguard in Cardfight Vanguard, or something like that, your buddy monster in Buddy Fight. But next up, there's a 1 cost monster, which are pretty good early on. You kind of need to do something on your first turns. But next up, we have cards like this, which is a spell and the colon chant. So this is just your kind of standard magic card from Yu-Gi-Oh, your standard spell from Magic the Gathering. You could only use this during the main phase of your turn. It doesn't work during your opponent's turn, and you pay the cost, has an effect, it works. It's kind of the slowest spell speed, or whatever you want to say. There's another type of spell called an instant, chant instant, and these are the ones you can pretty much do in response to anything your opponent does. Once again, you pay a cost and you can activate it and it does something. Some specific timings, like target blocking resonator, so you can only use this when you're blocking and stuff like that. Next up, this is a really interesting type of card. The spell chant standby. What you do here is all of these standby ones cost 2 will to cast. You pay that, and then you put it face down in this area here, the standby area, and you put it face down, and then you activate it at a later point. So you have the writing here: trigger, discard a card from your hand when you're attacked. So you can only activate this once you have it face down when you're being attacked, and you have to pay the cost to discard a card, and then the effect activates. So this is effectively a trap card in from Yu-Gi-Oh, but done in kind of the style of like Magic the Gathering. And I don't know if Magic has ever actually done something like this, but I found it really unique. In the few games I've played, it hasn't really come up that many times, since it's quite specific, and this is one of the only ones that is in the trial decks here, the 2 that I have at least. But it seems like a really interesting idea if they make more powerful versions of cards like this. But very unique standby. And obviously the spell speed on the first one is just you have to activate it during your turn. But after that, once it's face down, you can actually do it whenever you want. It acts basically as an instant once you have paid the cost and you have it face down. And there's what the back of these cards looks like. Really nice. Just you can see that they kind of like the back of a Vanguard or Buddy Fight card. They're very nicely made. Some nice kind of raised sections here with the kind of star pentagrams style symbol. Force of Will trading card game. Very nice and just pretty kind of classic and stuff like that. Not a whole lot going on, but pretty nice. Final type of card is this one. Also has a will cost, and it's called an addition resonator, and there's also addition ruler, J ruler, or whatever. These are basically equip spells or pump spells from Magic. All these do is they remain on the field attached to one of your monster's resonators in this game. In this case, with the addition resonator, has to go onto a resonator, and just gives them an effect or gives them attack or defense or both in this case. And that's what these do. Really interesting, That's what they do. And obviously there's different types of cards as well. I think I've covered most of them here, but there may be some slight ones. Like I don't have an addition J ruler, which would help your J ruler get extra attack and stuff like that. But overall, they are the different types of cards, and that's more or less what they all do. I'll explain more of how they work in practice in the next section, which is how to actually play the game, set up, playing it, activating the various things you can do. So I'll see you then. Okay, so now it's time to set up the field and play the game. I've set up the opposing side of the field over here already, and now I'll show you how to set it up over here. So first of all, what you do is you take your J-ruler/ruler card, turn it over to the ruler side, the non-shiny side basically, the side that doesn't have the J-ruler bit on it, and then put it down right here on the ruler zone. That's the first thing you do. Then what you do is obviously you shuffle your deck, your main deck, not including the Magic Stone cards, and you just put it on the main deck zone over here. So just put that there, and then in this case we have 10 Magic Stones. You just put them together. I think you shuffle them if you have different types, and you put them in your Magic Stone deck here. And the idea is that you can have up to 20 Magic Stones here, and somewhere between 40 and 60 cards in your normal deck. But obviously, as with most trading card games, you tend to keep at least your deck that you draw from to a minimum, and I think with this, all that really matters is that you have probably, if you're playing two different colours, the same amount of each colour or a nice balance so that you draw the right cards when you need them. After this, what you do is you draw 5 cards into your starting hand. 5 cards into our hand. And then what you do here is you fill the life break area. As you can see here, it's got 4 different sections: 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000. From the top of your deck, you place 1 card into it to become the 1,000 point life break. You place a second card over that, making sure to keep the order correct. Second card over that to become the 2,000 point one. Over that again to be the 3,001, and then finally 4,000 point one. Because you start the game with 4,000 life points, both of you and your opponent, and this will come into play later on, this life break area. But yeah, from here, that's basically the game setup. You look at your hand. Let's just say this deck, the light deck, is going first, and let's look at our opening hand. And what we get here is an addition card, a 1 Will Resonator, a Spell Chant Instant, a 2 Will Resonator, and a 3 Will Resonator. So this is a pretty good hand. If you want to, you can do basically you have 1 mulligan. You can choose any number of cards from your hand, put them to the bottom of your deck, and draw that many cards back into your hand. First player can't draw on their first turn, and obviously because it's like Magic the Gathering, when you play a monster, they suffer from summoning sickness. They can't attack on their first turn, so that stops that being a factor. But yeah, then once you have your kind of hand in place, what you do is you obviously go from draw phase, recovery phase, which is putting stuff from the rest position back into this position, so it's your first turn. Then it goes to your call phase, which is basically this. You come down to your ruler, and if you want, you don't have to do this every turn, but it's really the only way to play the game. You rest your ruler, turn them from recovery state to rest position, and this allows you to draw 1 card from your Magic Stone deck, which is here, and put it into your Magic Stone area. So you get it here, and you have 1 Magic Stone now, which you can use to basically spend on calling cards and stuff like that. In this case, the best thing to do is to summon this 1 Will Resonator to the field. So what you do is you rest your 1 Magic Stone. You now have 1 light will to spend, and this only costs 1 light will, so we can summon this to the field. Put our hand over here. So yeah, we've got our monster on the field now. It just goes somewhere in this area here, the field area, and we can't attack, and that is our turn done then, basically. Our opponent, on the other hand, can draw on their first turn. So they draw a card, they also recover any cards they need. They do their call, where they rest their ruler, and then get a Magic Stone. So here's what the Fire Magic Stone looks like, and it just supplies Fire Will as opposed to anything else. This is where some of the effects of this ruler will come into play, because it's got a continuous effect that allows resonators with a total cost of 2 or less to attack the turn it's summoned. So this is one of the reasons why this deck is probably one of the better ones, the Fire one, if you're thinking about getting any of these, because it's got quite a lot of 1 and 2 Will Resonators. So this effect is very useful, and it's also got an effect where it gives the ability Explode to any monster, which I think is the equivalent of Death Touch from Magic the Gathering, so also very good effect. But that's that. But the thing is, that has an ability that doesn't matter if it's rested or not. The Resonator here for the light deck has an ability to activate where, if you want to, instead of playing a Magic Stone, you can actually just rest this to give a target Resonator 400 extra attack. So there's that, but it also means you have to slow your game down, not get an extra Magic Stone to use that effect. But that's that. That's also an advantage that has. So choosing your ruler is actually pretty important, because they have an effect that just affects your whole deck basically. So they pay their mana to summon one of their 1 Will creatures. This one has an enter effect that already it says enter this card and it can attack the turn it's summoned. So without even needing to use the effect of this thing, it can already attack if it wants. So there's that. And now the thing about attacking in this game is that it works a lot like Magic the Gathering, but there's some slight differences where instead of just, okay, I'm declaring an attack and then your opponent more or less decides what they're going to do with blocking, you can actually decide if you want to attack your opponent directly, or you can choose to attack directly one of your opponent's monsters that is in the rest position. So they can't, your specific monsters can't be attacked if they're just recovered like this. They can block if they're that way, but they can't be specifically attacked. But other than that, it works kind of very similarly. Like, this thing decides the only thing it can do right now if it wants to attack is attack me directly. And I can choose to either just take the damage, take 200 life points from my 4,000, or I can choose to block with this thing. Then I just choose block, turn it to the rest position, and then it would do 200 damage to me, and in response it would do 200 damage to it, destroying both of them. So it also works that way, like Magic the Gathering, where the two monsters attack each other rather than just the attack dealing damage to that, and the attack monster's fine otherwise. So that's where some of the strategy comes into play. The big thing that this deck has over this one is that because it can attack the turn it's summoned, regardless, it doesn't have to wait for a lot of its monsters. It's probably better off to actually just do that. So it just attacks. I decide to block, if I wanted to, and it gets destroyed. But in this case, I'm just going to take it, because the thing about this deck against this deck is that this one's quite slow because it has to wait for everything. So it's just going to take the 200 damage, it goes into 3,800, and it switches over to my turn. And obviously, starting the turn, you draw a card into your hand, new card. Recovery phase is you basically recover everything from rest to the right position, so that includes your J-Ruler, your Magic Stones, and your monsters if they're in that position. But in this case, we just go straight to the call phase, where we switch this to this mode, get another Magic Stone. That's the one thing about the mat, is that it gets very crowded very quickly. There's only enough space to stack perfectly side by side like 3 Magic Stones, but you get up to like 10 or at least 7 fairly quickly. But now, let's look at our hand. So, in addition to our hand already, we gained a 2 Will monster that gives us extra life points. So that's good, but it's probably better to get more monsters on the field right now. We don't necessarily need to recover life that quickly. This card only works when attacking, and we could use this if we wanted to increase the power of our thing on the field, but it's a fairly weak monster, so there's no point in doing that right now. So the best thing to do is probably just play this card. So we summon that to the field, and it cost 1, you can see there, it cost 1 light will and 1 will of any kind. So we just pay the 1 light will, and then 1 of any kind, just use a light one as well. Cost paid, it goes to the field, but the difference here is that this one's just been summoned to the field, so it can't attack. This one can attack, so I just like to separate them slightly and show that by putting this one near the back and this one at the front. So we can attack if we want, and now because this thing attacked last turn, we can choose to either target this or target the player. And it can't block, basically. So if I attack the player, they just take the damage, nothing would happen. If I attack this, it still attacks me back, basically. That's how it works. So it's up to us to really decide what we want to do here. I might as well just briefly, while I'm at it, explain to you what the life break is. So as you probably saw here, right here on the life break area, there's 1 value for each of these cards. So the top one is the 4,000 point value, and once you go, I think you can use this at any point, the 4,000 point one. I'm not sure if you have to be under that value or you can be on that value, but I'm going to assume it's under. So once you take any sort of damage below 4,000, you can use the first card here. So what you do is, okay, I'm activating my life break for 4,000 because I'm on 3,800. activate the card, and then you look to see does it have a red value here that says break, and if it does, you get to activate that effect. So this one says break, put this card into your field. So that's a break value, it just goes straight into the field. One of the things I'm not sure about with the rules is, because this is a break, its effect that says put the card into the field, it wasn't specifically summoned. Does that mean, you know, that it can attack this turn or not? Because it's a special kind of summon, I've gone with the assumption that I can just attack with it this turn if I wanted to. So that kind of worked out well for me. And now a life break you can actually use at any point during the game, more or less. You can use it during your opponent's turn, because some of them gain you life, some of them put cards onto your field, and some of them allow you to draw cards and so on. It all depends. Most of the monsters are like, put this card into your field. Most of the spells are like, draw a card, gain extra life, and so on. But let's just assume that this is the case right now. And now the thing here is that now that we've used one of these, we can't use our next card until we're below 3,000 life points. Then we can't use the next one until 2,000, the next one until 1,000. And you can save them up if you want. If you are below 1,000 and you haven't used any of them, you can use all 4 at once if you want. It becomes quite helpful if, you know, you're losing the game and you suddenly activate them all and suddenly you've got like 3 or 4 monsters out of nowhere. But yeah, so we're going to decide what we're doing here. We just decide we're going to attack this card with this one. They both destroy each other. They go to the graveyard. One thing I do like about the field here is that I kind of like the way that it has the cards kind of laid out sideways. So it really distinguishes, you know, the cards that are active, and then, okay, this is the graveyard because it's sideways this way, and as opposed to, you know, rest, you'd usually turn it that way. It works quite well, I think, the field on this smaller thing. And now we can attack with this one as well. We do damage to them. They take 200, they got into 3,800. And then it's up to them to, you know, it's their turn. They draw, they recover, they go to the call phase, so they rest this, get another card from the Magic Stone area, and then can do something if they want. Whether that be, and like Magic the Gathering, if you have enough will, you can play as many cards as you want as well. So there's that if you want to. The big thing with this deck, the fire one, is that if they have the two will resonators, because they can attack the turn they're summoned, that's a real big advantage for them. Right now they don't have any of those, but they do have 3 actual cards that they can summon. So here's the thing, they can use both of their mana, so they pay 2 to summon these 2 cards. So they're both 1 will resonators, both of them. And this one has an effect. It says, activate, you can banish this card to deal 400 damage to target resonator. So that's pretty good because it only has 200 attack, 200 defense. But if you want to, you can take out a more powerful monster your opponent has. So they can banish just means put destroy to send to the graveyard. So they activate that effect, go to the graveyard. They deal 400 damage to this resonator. It only has 400 defense, so it's destroyed. And then with this, they attack this one. So they take out both of my monsters. And then, last but not least, you know, they decide, okay, they're going to activate their life break, 4,000, because they're below that. And they get the effect, break, put this card onto your field. So they have a blocker if they want to next turn. That's one way to use it. You can use it in an offensive sense or defensive sense, depending on when you do it. So they end their turn, we go back to our turn. I'm actually just going to skip ahead a few turns, you know, just get more cards in play. Let's just say, you know, the turns have happened back and forth. They're both up to, you know, 5, we'll just say. It's halfway through the game, roughly. We have 5 mana available. Now I'll show you how to use the effect of Delphinus here. Delphinius, I think is the name. So you have the first ability here. I don't think you can quite see it because of the focus on this camera, but it says J activate, light will 2, so 4 will to activate. So what you do is you just pay your 4 will, so we'll play this 4. And then what you do is you flip the card over, and then you put it onto the field, because the J ruler side is the side that has the attack and the defense and stuff like that. So this has the effect target attack, which is an ability that allows it, I think, to target cards that are in the recovered state. So if this card wanted to, because it has that ability, it can attack this card even though it's in the recovered state, when usually you'd only be able to attack the player or a card in this state. But that ability allows you to do otherwise. This also has an ability, enter, destroy all race dragon and race demon cards on the field. This parrot dragon is a dragon, so it's destroyed straight away. And it has a continuous effect, your opponent reveals all cards in his or her chance standby area. They have none, so that doesn't apply, but when they put them there, we know what they have. So that's pretty good. So yeah, let's do that. And then I think this, because it's not a resonator, it doesn't suffer from summoning sickness when it comes onto the field. It's one of the there's little things like that in the rule book where even the FAQ section doesn't mention, you know, does a resonator have to abide, does a J ruler have to abide by that rule or not. When I've been playing the game, I've gone with, when you summon a J ruler, you can attack the turn they're summoned, just because they're the powerful card, they shouldn't have to deal with those rules. But so yeah, you attack with it, it does 1,000 damage to your opponent, and this allows them to use, you know, their next life break, because they've gone below 3,000 now, continuing the game. They activate this card, it doesn't have a break symbol, so in that case it just goes straight to the graveyard, like the other cards when their effect is used. And now there are some cards like the front card from the light deck, Michael, that card, that has an ability that allows you to put cards back into the life break area, and then another effect that allows you to pay for an ability using cards in the life break area. So it is used a little bit, and there's probably going to be more cards that involve it. It's a really just nice thing where, like, if you're losing a game badly, you can just activate this and suddenly you're back in the game. It really makes this game, I think, a lot more accessible, easier to play than Magic the Gathering. The same with stuff like the casting cards. So let's just say I have an extra Lightstone here to use. I have 2. In my hand I have this card, which is a Chance Standby. It costs 2 will, like all of them do. What you do is you pay your 2 will, and then what you do is, instead of activating the card straight away, you put it face down in the standby area. And then once you end your turn, you can activate it at any point after that, during your opponent's turn, during your turn, but you have to abide by the effect. So in this case, trigger, discard a card from your hand when you're attacked, and it's only in response to a direct attack. So because obviously, say I had this card like that, and they attacked me with, say, this card, they can only attack me directly, and because of that I could discard a card, and then trigger this by activating it. That damage now becomes 0, the card is used up, and that's how it works. So I think that's a really cool idea for a system in this game. It works really nicely. So yeah, that's more or less everything about the game. Final thing really to mention would be how the additions work. So let's say, one more thing about these J rulers actually is, since they become a monster on the field, they can actually be attacked and destroyed. And when they're destroyed, what happens is they don't go to the graveyard, they're just flipped back into this mode. They go to the ruler zone. They lose all of their effects except the ability to, you know, turn it sideways and get a card from your Magic Stone deck. That effect still is valid, but you can't you can't turn them back into this mode again, and all their continuous and activate effects are gone as well. and in addition to that, you lose half of your life points as well. So if you're on 4,000, you go down to 2,000 and so on. So it's quite risky to use this, but it's also one of the only ways to get back into game if you're losing that badly. Yeah, but as I was saying, let's say we spend 2 Lightstone magic to summon this monster. Then we'll activate this addition resonator. It costs 1, we pay that, and the addition resonator, obviously, it can apply to only a resonator, so it's basically an equips card, and you put it underneath this, and it says to continuous resonator with this gains plus 200 plus 400, and this is as long as this monster remains on the field. So it now has 600 attack and 800 defense, so it's actually a pretty good card. That's like the equivalent of a 3 or 4 Will resonator. So that's pretty cool, and you know, you just keep playing back and forth until someone goes down to 0 life points. And as I said, stuff like the life break comes in really handy over the course of this game. Activating a late life break can really help. Be like this one, break, target resonator gets explode until end of turn. That's a good way of getting rid of a really powerful monster. The difference between a resonator and a J ruler happens sometimes because, especially in this case, the 2 different J rulers here, more or less when they attack each other, they're both destroyed, because 1,000 attack against 800 defense destroys this, but 1,200 attack against 1,000 destroys this. And all the additions in these decks only apply to resonators as well. So it's quite difficult to actually give your J ruler extra attack power. And really, I found in the game, a few games I've played, that when you get to a stage where these 2 cards are on the field, the only way to get rid of one of them is to just attack this into this and destroy them both, just to get them out of the way. Which for the light deck is very important, because this card here, getting rid of the effect where any 0, 1, or 2 Will resonators, the ability to attack on the same turn they're summoned, is incredibly useful for this deck. But yeah, that's more or less how you play the game. Obviously, I don't have access to a really large card pool, but I think there are other, like, going to be at some stage, special magic stones that have other effects, which should be really cool. But overall, it seems like a Magic the Gathering that's a lot easier to get into. I found this game a lot easier to learn. I found this game a lot easier to play than Magic the Gathering. Even though I appreciate Magic for how complex it is and how there's so many decisions involved, and maybe some of the lore is better in Magic and some card design and stuff like that, this game seems a lot more fun to play than that, which I quite appreciate. I don't see myself getting crazy into it, but probably like a lot of these games, maybe I'll pick up a trial deck or 2 every so often when there's a new release or something like that. But yeah, I definitely think the gameplay here is quite interesting, and at the very least I'll probably pick up some more starter decks just to see how varied the games can be when there's different card effects in play. But yeah, next I'll go into some of the rarities of the cards and stuff like that, and just talk in general about what I think about how competitive it is and stuff like that. Okay, so here is a common card, and as I said, this is what you get most of in each pack. As I said, I think you get 6 commons in each pack, 2 uncommons, 1 rare or above, and 1 magic stone. Like, it's pretty much like a Magic the Gathering pack, just with 5 less cards. So a common just looks like that. It's a normal card, nothing shiny about it. An uncommon is the same, but obviously has the U there instead of the C here. And you can see these are all from the Dawn of Valhalla set, even though they're from the starter deck. This is card number 40, from set 1 obviously. This is card number 48, uncommon. And it just means you're less likely to get this card in a pack than that one. It's still a fairly common card, hence why it has common in the name. Here's a first rare. And the thing with these cards is you get in each starter deck you get a shiny ruler, two shiny promo cards that are the same of one monster, and you get one rare from the set. So in the light deck you get Garahad the Oracle Knight, who's a rare, and then you can see that it is a shiny card all over. It's kind of a super rare style from Yu-Gi-Oh! There are actual super rare cards in this game, but I'm not actually sure what they look like. If I can find a picture, I'll insert it here, but I haven't seen a lot of coverage of this game at all. I don't think there's any English coverage of this game apart from my first video of this and now this one. So I don't know if I'll be able to get that, but I'll see what I can do. And here's the rare I got from the pack. Just like this card, it's shiny on there, nothing overly special about it. And I assume there'll be some sort of gold treatment to the super rares. I assume that's what they usually do. On the in terms of rulers, which they kind of separate on the back of the packet, which I'll back of the individual packet, which I'll show you if we can find it again. Yeah, this is S001. That just means it's, the first kind of promo card in the starter deck, and I assume this is roughly what maybe the super rares look like. You can see the gold kind of pattern around the sides, and this is considered, I suppose, the front of the card, and then this side says the same thing on it, and it's not shiny at all. And maybe that's what this ultra super rare pattern looks like, but I'll just look at the back of the pack again, see what it says. Yeah, you can see here the booster packs. You can sort of see it's translated there. This booster pack are included 10 pieces of the total, some images, but yeah. Light, wind, fire, wind. Light, fire, water, wind, darkness, void. So void, I think, are the neutral cards, and then darkness is a different one. And then here's the rarity list. There's 8 rare rulers, 8 uncommon rulers, 12 super rares, 51 rares, 54 uncommons, 121 commons, and 5 magic stones. So I think just based on that, there are 5 starter decks of each of a different type of magic stone. So I don't think there's any special magic stones in this set. And then I assume that just because of the breakdown here, that the rarity on the rulers is done a little bit differently than the rest of the cards. So yeah, I'll definitely throw in some images if there is anything overly different with them. But yeah, now to talk about this game in terms of, I suppose, how competitive I think it can be. The first thing I think is just, will this game get popular and stuff like that? How popular will the game actually get? I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this game, really. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I don't think it has an American distributor yet. And so not a lot of people have access to getting this unless they want to order it online. Yeah, I think it is a good game. I really do. I think if you find Magic the Gathering a little bit too complicated, to some extent that's kind of the situation I'm in. I just find, like, going from playing like Buddy Fight, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Vanguard to playing Magic the Gathering, the amount of thinking I have to do just to play a simple game, like I don't make complicated decks in that game, is pretty insane. But yeah, I'm just showing you some of the cards of the fire deck, since I primarily focused on the light deck there. Here's the shiny there. And yeah, it seems like a really just cool game. A mix between, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, a little bit of Vanguard with the idea of the ruler being like this one card that you have and that's it's really special. And then just in addition to like adding on to that general Magic the Gathering framework, the idea of life break as kind of this way to get abilities depending on how much life points you have. The idea of the kind of chant, spell, what are they called again? Standbys that activate like trap cards. Really cool as well. And just stuff like, when your ruler is a J ruler and it gets destroyed, you lose half of your life points. Some really, really nice ideas, I think. And if this game gets enough support, it continues for a long time, I can definitely see them doing a lot of interesting stuff with it, but it definitely needs to get a bit more popular. Definitely a game I'd recommend people at least try out. Buy, you know, your two favorite trial decks, see if you like it enough. But yeah, very interesting overall. Obviously, because it's so new, I can't talk too much about how competitive I think it can be. But just based on what I've seen from like people talking about the Japanese release of this game and the little I've heard about the English release, the Fire trial deck seems to be the best in terms of, you know, just playing with a trial deck straight from the box. Just because, as I said, the ruler has that ability where you basically give your monsters that are 1 or 2 or 0 will haste. Just to show you, here's a card that's 0 will to cost. This is the rare that I got in my pack. Probably going to go straight into my light deck. 0 will to cost, and it's got a pretty nice effect. But yeah, very, very cool game. And you know, Fire deck, as I said, probably the best one just because it's got like spells like this, Fireball. Like if you draw this very early on, it completely shuts down this light deck in early on with the just ability to deal 400 damage to your opponent. And then if you get this as a life break card, it deals 500 damage to your opponent, so even better and stuff like that. It's very nice. And then the keyword ability Explode is used a lot in this deck, which again, it has all these burn and like small monsters to take out the smaller monsters from the light deck, and then it's got Explode to deal with the more powerful monsters, and it even helps you know, deal with like this guy, which is the best monster in the light deck. Even the smallest monster with Explode can take this thing out, and that's really powerful. I can't really remember what all the other decks do, but obviously the Darkness deck is kind of like Black in Magic the Gathering, where it focuses on putting cards in the graveyard, effects from there. I think the green, like a Wind deck, is focused more on spells, using a lot of spells to do stuff, and stuff like that. Magic kind of focused if you have more magic stones than your opponent. Water, I think, is focused on like cloning and stuff like that. It allows you to clone or something like that. I'm not fully sure, but usually there's like a keyword that's specific to a lot of them. Like this one the light deck focuses on gaining life, and then there's a little bit of flying monsters in here. There's a few of them, and this one is Explode, burn damage. But yeah, that is pretty much the end of my video. I hope you've enjoyed this Force of Will, Airspeed Plays Force of Will video. Definitely recommend the game. Tell me what you think of this. Are you interested in getting it? Stuff like that in the comments. But other than that, I will be back probably next week or something like that. I'll try if I can to get it out sometime in the middle of next week, but more than likely it'll be next weekend with my Airspeed Plays TCGs for Weiss Schwarz, that other Bushiroad game. So I'll probably have that coming up in about a week or so. So thanks for watching this video, and bye.